Check 1 2, check 1 2 3. Here we are testing out one of the witness mics. You're good.
Good morning, everyone. Please forgive my tardiness. Nobody's going to say that's okay? Ms. Curta, come on, I expect you to. Come on. Thank you. Subcommittee will come to order. I'm pleased to be here today for our fourth subcommittee markup in the 118th Congress. Today we are marking up 14 bills. I will be asking unanimous consent to consider some of them on block. All of these bills have been submitted had a subcommittee legislation hearing this Congress. In accordance with committee rules, the subcommittee has contacted the Congressional Budget Office seeking informal preliminary cost estimates for each of the bills being considered today. These preliminary scores are only a range, of course, of potential costs. None of the bills today include the offsets that would be necessary to move the bills forward through the full committee. Finding offsets ensures that we keep our fiscal house in order. If we cannot find the offset of these bills, unfortunately, we'll not be able to consider them at full committee markup. I look forward to working with Ranking Member Pappas and the other members of the committee to find reasonable offsets for all of them. I now recognize Ranking Member Pappas for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Luttrell. I appreciate you holding today's markup, and thank you especially for agreeing to include 3 bills, which I've introduced: H.R. 9055, the VA Insurance Improvement Act; H.R. 9056, the Veterans Burial Improvement Act; and H.R. 9057, the Gulf War Survivors Benefits Improvement Act. H.R. 9055 would expand VA life insurance to all veterans under 81 years of age, whereas now this program is only available to veterans with service-connected disabilities. VA life is required to be actuarially sound, meaning all its costs are borne by the ratepayers, so there is no cost to this legislation. In fact, this bill would actually improve the financial soundness of the program by adding more ratepayers who are younger and healthier to the program. It would preserve the ability of the program to continue premium waivers for the most severely disabled veterans. H.R. 9055 also makes a few technical updates to the Service Members Group Life Insurance by adding Space Force to the definition of uniformed services, allowing guardians to be eligible. H.R. 9056, the Veterans Burial Improvement Act, makes several important tweaks to the benefits program managed by the National Cemetery Administration. The bill makes permanent eligibility for the burial of spouses and children who predeceased the veteran. The bill also allows VA to pay a flat rate for the transportation costs of decedent's remains, allowing NCA to deliver this benefit faster. The bill also provides criteria for group burial markers, expands eligibility for memorial items for Medal of Honor recipients, and expands eligibility for a plot allowance to more veterans, spouses, and dependents. I know many of these provisions are duplicated in other legislation that we're considering today, so I'm pleased we're hedging our bets somewhat and creating multiple avenues for these measures to pass into law, given how precious and uncertain floor time has been this Congress. Additionally, Mr. Chairman, thank you again for considering H.R. 9057. This is the Gulf War Survivor Benefits Update Act. This bill would prevent any potentially inconsistent results in survivors' pensions claims based on Gulf War service and would ensure that all surviving spouses receive the most favorable consideration for VA benefits. Furthermore, this bill provides an established delimiting date based on any termination date based on presidential proclamation of the Persian Gulf War ending, and the language in this amendment ensures that a consistent 10-year qualifying period is afforded to all surviving spouses seeking pension benefits based upon a veteran's Gulf War service. I'll note, Mr. Chairman, we're still waiting on Congressional Budget Office scoring information for those bills, and I certainly understand, appreciate, and concur that before any of those bills move through full committee, that information will be absolutely necessary. But as I said, I appreciate you taking this preliminary step to keep the process moving. I also wish to express strong consideration for H.R. 2971, the Veterans Claims Education Act, from Representative Peters. Irrespective of what one may feel about the for-profit unaccredited claims consultants, I think we can agree that more information in the hands of veterans is a good thing so that they can make informed decisions about who, if anyone, they may wish to represent them before VA. And I think we can also agree that protecting veterans from potential scammers, which this bill aims to do, is also a good thing. So lastly, with respect to Ranking Member Waters' bill, H.R. 6362, this is the Protecting Benefits for Disabled Veterans Act. I know there's some concern about the substance of that bill. I will say that our staff has been in close contact with Ms. Waters' staff. I believe this has been relayed to your staff as well, and there's a willingness on all sides to make changes to this bill to bring it in line with what VA and stakeholders recommend. The TDIU benefit is a vital one, and we need to ensure that any future administration can't unilaterally end a program that veterans have come to depend on. So I appreciate you advancing through this through the subcommittee, and you have my commitment to work through the necessary changes to this bill to ensure its viability before the full committee. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for working together on these initiatives. I appreciate the bipartisan nature of our subcommittee, and I yield back my time.
Thank you, Ranking Member. I now ask unanimous consent to consider en bloc the following bills: H.R. 2971, H.R. 6362, H.R. 8792, do I have to say H.R. every time? I'm kidding. Okay. H.R. 8874, H.R. 8879, H.R. 8880, H.R. 8881, H.R. 8910, H.R. 9055, H.R. 9056, and H.R. 9057. Hearing no objections, so ordered, the clerk shall report the bill.
H.R. 2971. To
The
amend.
bills were circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. I ask that the reading of the bills be dispensed with and the bills be open to amendment at any point without objection, so ordered. I recognize myself for a moment to say that these bills would improve access to VA burial benefits and provide more choices for survivors to honor their veteran loved ones buried in the U.S. and overseas, ensure higher quality and more efficient processing of veterans' claims with automation technology tools and improved training, simplifying the forms that veterans and survivors must complete, and improving the notices that they receive regarding who may represent them on their claims, and improve access to disability compensation examinations for rural and tribal veterans. Do any other members wish to comment on these bills and en bloc? Hearing none, I recognize the ranking member for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the en bloc consisting of H.R. 2971, H.R. 6362, H.R. 8792, H.R. 8910, H.R. 8874, H.R. 8881, H.R. 8879, H.R. 8880, H.R. 9055, H.R. 9056, H.R. 9057 be forwarded favorably to the full committee.
There is a motion favorably forward all the bills included in the en bloc. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the bills are favorably forward to the full committee. Without objection, the motion is reconsidered and laid upon the table. H.R. 8893, Preserving Veterans Legacy Act. I now call up H.R. 8893, the Preserving Veterans Legacy Act. The clerk shall report the bill.
H.R. 8893. To amend
The text
title.
was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is now open for amendment at any point. I recognize myself to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute. The clerk shall report the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment in the nature of a substitute be dispensed with, and that it be considered base text for purposes of the markup. Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes to explain the amendment in the nature of a substitute. H.R. 8893 would authorize VA to provide a single group burial marker for veterans buried in group interments in lieu of individual headstones. It would also extend the authority for VA enter certain veterans' spouses, surviving spouses, and children in a VA national cemetery. The amendment would include a proposal that I introduced that would ensure that every Medal of Honor recipient is now properly honored where they have been laid to rest, no matter when they served. The amendment would also extend the authority for VA to provide headstones or markers for certain veterans, surviving spouses, and dependent children whose remains are unavailable for burial. And the amendment would allow a veteran to be interred in a VA national cemetery, even if the veteran survivor initially chose an urn or a plaque. Our nation owes our veterans and their families a debt that can never be fully repaid, and the Preserving Veterans Legacy Act would ensure that they have dignified final resting places alongside their loved ones. I encourage my colleagues to support this important legislation. Do any members wish to comment on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 8893? Are there any amendments to the amendment in the nature of the substitute of H.R. 8893? Hearing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 8893. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now recognize Ranking Member Pappas for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 8893 be forwarded favorably to the full committee.
There's a motion to favorably forward H.R. 8893 as amended. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. H.R. 8893 is amended and is reported favorably to full committee. Without objection, the motion is reconsidered and is laid upon the table. I now call up H.R. 9053, the Veterans Second Amendment Restoration Act. The clerk shall report the bill.
H.R. 9053, to require
The
notification.
text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is now open for amendment at any point. I now recognize myself to speak briefly on the bill. H.R. 9053 would remedy past due process violations for veterans who have been stripped of their Second Amendment rights to purchase a firearm simply because they were assigned a fiduciary to help them manage their VA benefits. It has my full support. Does any member wish to comment on the bill? Mr. McGarvey, you recognize, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate this. And I understand the desire on this committee to balance taking care of our veterans, making sure they're coming and getting the treatment they need, with also the serious concerns we have for veteran suicide right now. In this country, 18 veterans die each day by suicide, 13 with a firearm. This is a crisis we've talked about in many ways on this committee. And I fear that this bill could contribute and not help us solve that crisis. Because when we talk about our veterans in crisis, we talk about reporting these populations to NICS. VA is following long-established DOJ and ATF regulations. This legislation, though, is retroactive, which causes the VA to have to claim that they were acting improperly when at the time they were not. It would also cause the VA to have to review more than 200,000 records, taking time and attention away from delivering the benefits our veterans need. So I think there are safeguards here. There are due process procedures in place if a veteran was improperly listed. I think we can talk about amending this bill. We can make the procedures easier for veterans to follow, really come up with the right approach. I just don't think this bill gets us there and is not what we should be doing. We could be talking about some common sense protections for our veterans. So I would urge a vote against this bill and go back to the drawing board.
Thank you, Mr. McGarvey. Are there any amendments to H.R. 9053? I now recognize Mr. Self for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee forward H.R. 9053, Veterans Second Amendment Restoration Act, favorably to the full committee.
There's a motion to favorably forward H.R. 9053. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 9053 is favorably reported to the full committee. H.R. 9054, Safeguarding Veterans Second Amendment Right Act by Representative Crane. I now call up H.R. 9054, the Safeguarding Veterans Second Amendment Rights Act. The clerk shall report the bill.
H.R. 9054, to prevent the use
The
of
text was circulated in advance pursuant to the committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is now open for amendment at any point. I now recognize myself to speak briefly on the bill. H.R. 9054 would ensure that no VA officer or employee in the course of their duties initiates or participates in any state or local proceedings that could temporarily confiscate a veteran's firearm. I support the legislation because it would ensure that veterans are not discouraged from seeking VA care because of the risk that their VA care provider could involve themselves in proceedings that would violate their Second Amendment rights. Does any member wish to comment on the bill? Mr. McGarvey, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I want to express my concerns about this bill another time. As I've stated before, extreme risk protection orders are there for a reason. They are there to keep people safe. They are there to keep, oftentimes, the individual safe. Extreme risk protection orders are most effective in cases of death by suicide. And when we talk about gun violence in this country, we have to recognize that more than 50% of the deaths in this country are death by suicide. It is a temporary removal of a firearm from someone who is experiencing a crisis. They are court orders. They are issued with care. And I think this is another one where we should go back to the drawing board on this bill to make sure we are keeping our veterans as safe as possible while safeguarding rights. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McGarvey. Mr. Self, sir, you're recognized.
Yeah, first of all, that 50% figure is absolutely wrong. Abortions are the #1 cause of death in our nation today, and frankly, veterans, I heard improperly on the NICS list. They are improperly on, all of them are improperly on the NICS list because this is a constitutional bar that we have not met. I support this bill.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to H.R. 9054? I now recognize Representative Self for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee forward H.R. 9054, Safeguarding Veterans Second Amendment Rights Act of 2024, favorably to the full committee.
There's a motion to favorably forward H.R. 9054. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those in favor opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 9054 is favorably reported to full committee. I ask unanimous consent that the committee staff be authorized to make technical, clerical, and conforming changes to the bills favorable forward today. Hearing no objections, so ordered. I thank the members for their attendance today, and the subcommittee is adjourned. Test, test. There we go. Yep, we got it. We're good. Mr. Bracci, we missing some folks?
We are from VA. He's from VA OIG.
Okay.
They're checking on them right now. There has been a little bit of traffic.
Subcommittee will come to order. Thank you to all of our witnesses for being here. Today we're going to take a closer look at whether the Veterans Benefits Administration has implemented quality assurance and training programs to ensure that VBA employees properly process and decide veterans and survivors' claims for VA benefits. Inadequate employee training and effective quality control processes have led to the rework, waste agency resources, and incorrect decisions on veterans and survivors' claims for VA benefits. When the VBA claims processors have to redo their work, and when veterans and survivors have to appeal incorrect decisions on their claims, that adds months and years to how long veterans and survivors must wait to finally receive the benefits they are eligible for. Given this bureaucratic problem set, a lot of veterans just give up on pursuing their claims. We recognize that it is difficult to balance the goal of issuing veterans fast decisions on their claims with the goal of issuing fair and correct decisions. But we must ensure that quality is not sacrificed for quantity. VBA has made some great improvements to its quality assurance and training programs, including some progress since we first notified VA of our intentions to hold this hearing. However, based on our reports from the VA Office of Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office, there is much work still to be done. Numerous VA OIG reports have identified disproportionately high rates of error in certain kinds of disability compensation claims and certain processing tasks. Just last week, the VA OIG issued a report in which OIG estimated the VBA had an error rate of roughly 75% in claims. An estimated error rate of 75%, where veterans were seeking a 100% rating based on their inability to work. There are the so-called TDIU claims. That is much too high. OIG estimated that from May 2022 to April 23 alone, TDIU claims processing errors resulted in at least $100 million in improper payments, and that improper payments could have been as high as $250 million. As another example, in February of 2024, report OIG estimated that VBA had an error rate of 43% in claims where veterans were seeking benefits for hip and knee replacements. OIG estimated that from February 2021 to August 2022 alone, these hip and knee claim processing errors resulted in $3.3 million in improper payments. When errors result in underpayments, affected veterans do not receive the benefits they've earned. When errors result in overpayments, VA wastes taxpayer dollars. We owe it to the veterans, the families, and the American taxpayer to hold the VBA accountable for the quality claims processing and decision making. I look forward to working with the VBA leadership here with us today and employees as well as with GAO and OIG today and in the future to ensure that VBA's quality assurance and training programs effectively prevent these errors from happening again. With that, I yield to the ranking member for his opening statement.
Well, thank you, Chairman Luttrell. I look forward to exploring this important issue of quality assurance and training within the Veterans Benefits Administration together. From fiscal year 23 to the first half of 24, over 4.4 million disability claims have been submitted to VBA. As a result, veterans have been compensated nearly $143 billion for their injuries incurred while serving on our nation's security interests. The task of processing these millions of claims veterans depend on falls to just 20,000 claims processors inside VBA regional offices spread throughout the country. Because of the scale, complexity, and importance of VBA's disability compensation program, the GAO added the program to their high-risk list back in 2003. That's 21 years ago. Since then, both GAO and OIG have consistently identified quality and training-related issues that have uncovered deeper concerns in VBA's leadership ability to modernize and reform operations through quality assurance and training. I anticipate GAO and OIG will speak directly to their respective concerns outlined in their reports, so I'll share just two quotes sampled from their reports that I believe communicate the heart of the issue. From OIG, quote, "While VBA's quality assurance program routinely identified claims processing deficiencies and communicated results to internal and external stakeholders, OFO did not ensure that regional office employees took adequate corrective actions and addressed the deficiencies identified," end quote. From GAO, quote, "Reforms are done on a project-by-project basis without centralized leadership and not consistently in accordance to the leading reform practices," end quote. During visits to VBA regional offices, this committee has consistently heard concerns from claims processors about VBA's training and quality assurance efforts. The story's always the same. New employees return from VIP training feeling unprepared for the duties of their job. They've voiced these concerns to leadership but haven't been heard. In response, employees in regional offices have taken it upon themselves to design and implement grassroots training programs to fill the